You see the notification. It's 11:47 at night. You were almost asleep. And there it is. Their name. Right there on your screen. Like a ghost that just walked back into the room. And for a second, your body doesn't know how to react. Your heart jumps. Your breath catches. And something old, something you thought you were finally done feeling, starts moving through you like a wave you didn't see coming. And your brain starts running. Why now? Why after all this time? Does this mean something changed? What do I even say? Am I supposed to be over this by now? And if I respond, does that make me weak? Or does it make me human? Here's what most people get completely wrong about this moment. They think that if their avoidant ex is reaching out, it means something has shifted. That maybe, finally, they've done the work. That maybe the reason it didn't work before was always them, and now they get it. Here's the real truth. Most avoidant exes reach out not because they've changed, but because they've finally stopped feeling overwhelmed enough to want to reach out. That's not the same thing. And knowing the difference will save you months of confusion. You're not crazy for feeling confused right now. You are not reading into this. You are not being dramatic. You are being human. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to respond. Not from a place of desperation or hope or fear, but from a place of deep, grounded clarity about who you are and what you actually deserve. Let's get into it. Before we get into the practical stuff, I need you to really understand what's happening underneath the surface here. Because this is where most people lose themselves in this situation entirely. Most people in your position think they're asking, should I respond or not? Should I take this seriously or protect myself? Is this a real second chance or just a mistake? But here's what nobody explains. The real question isn't about them. It's about the version of you that reached for them for years while they kept pulling away, and whether you're still in that same emotional position without even realizing it. Here's what happens to most people who dated an avoidant partner. You got used to reaching into silence. You got used to making yourself smaller so they wouldn't feel pressured. You got used to interpreting withdrawal as being independent because you didn't want to believe the alternative, that you were slowly disappearing from their emotional world. And now, here they are, reaching out. For the first time in months or years, suddenly present. And your nervous system doesn't know how to calibrate. Because the pattern it's been running on for months or years was the pattern of being the only one who was trying. And now, they're reaching. So the pattern flips, and every instinct you built around survival starts screaming at you to respond, to be warm, to prove you still care. Not because that's what you actually want, but because that's the habit your nervous system built around them. And the reason this is so disorienting is that your attachment system has been trained to associate their distance with safety, and their sudden warmth with connection, even though neither of those things was ever true. The warmth wasn't connection. It was the brief moment when they felt calm enough to open. The distance wasn't safety. It was the moment they felt overwhelmed and pulled away. And you got trained to hold on through the distance and soften through the silence. And you thought that was love. It wasn't. It was survival. So when they reach out now, I need you to ask yourself, am I responding from who I am now? Or am I responding from the version of me that spent years trying to reach someone who kept stepping back? Because here's the paradigm shift that changes everything. The question isn't whether they're different. It's whether you still fit into the same emotional pattern you did before, and whether that pattern served you then, and whether it serves you now. If it did, Respond with full eyes open. If it didn't, the fact that they reached out doesn't change what the pattern was. Let's get into how to actually navigate this. Point 1. Check your wound before you check your phone. Here's the thing. Before you think about what to say, before you draft 17 versions of a response, before you lie awake running it through your head, I need you to check one thing. Not their message, not their tone, not what it might mean, your own emotional position. Most people in this situation respond from the wound, not from the center. They respond from the part of them that spent months wondering if they were good enough, from the part that got used to being the one who always reached, from the part that still has unresolved questions about why it ended and whether they could have done something differently. And I'm telling you, that version of you is not the one who should be writing this response. Most people in relationships with avoidant partners internalized a very specific habit. They got used to reading the room, managing the temperature, making themselves available and calm and undemanding. They became so practiced at soothing themselves that they forgot they were also allowed to have a real reaction. They got so good at being the steady one that they forgot they were also someone who needed to be reached for. So when that person reaches out, your nervous system is running an old program. And the old program says, be warm, be open, don't scare them off, show them you're okay, make this easy for them. But here's what no one tells you. That instinct, the one telling you to make it easy, to be low pressure, to not show up too strong, is the exact same instinct that kept you small in that relationship. And responding from that place won't tell you anything about whether this time is different. It'll just tell you whether you can fit back into the old pattern. What does this look like in real life? Version 1. Responding from the wound. You respond quickly. You're warm. You keep it casual. You don't say anything that could be too much. You show them you're totally fine, and you leave the door open, just in case they want to walk through it. And inside, your heart is racing, but you keep your hands steady because that's what you've always done. Version 2. Responding from your center. You take the time you actually need. You sit with what comes up. You notice whether you're responding because you genuinely want connection with this person or because you're trying to resolve the feeling they left behind in you. And then, only then, you respond from a place where your needs are equally as real as theirs. And here's what changes everything. When you respond from your center instead of your wound, you're not testing them. You're testing yourself. You're asking, do I actually want this, or do I just want closure? Do I actually miss them, or do I just miss being chosen? And that answer is the first thing you need before you write a single word back. Point 2. Name what you actually need from this exchange. Here's the part no one talks about. Most people, when their avoidant ex reaches out, they think about what to say. But almost nobody stops to ask, what do I actually need from this? And the reason this matters so much is that your avoidant ex, almost by definition, is not going to be able to meet a vague emotional need. If you don't know what you're asking for, you will end up confused, disappointed, and right back in the same cycle, where you tried to ask for connection and got a polite response instead, and then you told yourself that was enough. Most people in your position have no idea what they actually need from this conversation. They think they want the ex back. They think they want an explanation. They think they want an apology. But when you dig under the surface, what most people actually need falls into 3 categories. They need to feel like they mattered, like it wasn't one-sided, like the person who left didn't leave because they were easy to leave. Or they need to feel like it wasn't their fault, like the distance wasn't because of something they did wrong, like the reason it ended was about the other person's pattern, not their own inadequacy. Or they need to feel like there's still a path forward. Like two people who loved each other don't have to be strangers forever. Like they can still be chosen. This time, in a way that actually works. Each of those needs is legitimate. But here's the thing. An avoidant ex reaching out can deliver exactly one of those three things. And only if you're extremely clear about which one you're actually asking for. What does this look like in real life? Version 1. Unclear. You respond and you say something open-ended like, "It's good to hear from you. How have you been?" And then they respond with something polite and surface level. And you feel that familiar, quiet disappointment settle in. And you tell yourself, maybe next time. And the cycle continues, and you never actually get what you needed. Version 2. Clear. Before you respond, you sit with the question, what do I actually need here? And you get honest with yourself. Maybe you need to know it wasn't all in your head. Maybe you need to know they remember it differently than your anxious brain has been telling you. Maybe you need to know that if this is just a casual hey, you can walk away from it without wondering forever. And then you respond in a way that either asks for what you need directly or sets a boundary around what you're willing to engage with. And when you do that, something shifts. You're not performing. You're not waiting. You're not hoping. You're treating yourself like someone whose emotional needs are real and valid and worth stating clearly, even if the other person isn't the one who can meet them. That's the shift that turns this from a second chance at repeating the same pattern into an opportunity to finally get the clarity you actually deserve. Point 3. Match their emotional temperature, not their words. This is where most people go wrong, and it's the one most couples never figure out. When an avoidant ex reaches out, you look at what they said. You read the words. And the words probably seem warm, or curious, or open, and you think, okay, they're in a good place, they're reaching, this feels real. But here's what you miss. The words they use and the emotional tone they can actually hold are two very different things. And an avoidant person reaching out will almost always use words that sound more open than they actually feel inside. Because the act of reaching itself is already a stretch for them. So the words go further than the feeling, every single time. And most people do the opposite. They read the open words, they get excited, they respond with the full weight of their emotional investment, warm, vulnerable, detailed, hopeful. And then the other person's response comes back and it's fine. It's polite. It's friendly. It's exactly the temperature that an avoidant nervous system can actually hold, which is warm enough to reach, but not warm enough to sustain real emotional intimacy. And you feel it immediately. That quiet, familiar disappointment. Like you showed up with everything, and they showed up with a fraction of it. And you're sitting there wondering if you imagined the whole thing. Most people in this situation do one of two things. They either pull back hard, feeling rejected and confused, or they lean in harder, trying to get them to the emotional level they reached for. And neither of those works. Here's what does. You match their emotional temperature, not their words. You hold the door open without standing in it yourself. What does this look like in real life? Version 1. Matching the words. They send a message that says, "I've been thinking about you a lot lately, and I miss what we had." And you respond with, "I've been thinking about you too. I miss this too. I wish things had been different." And you're vulnerable, and it's real, and you mean it. And then their response comes back 3 days later with, "Yeah, I hear you. It was complicated." And your heart sinks. Version 2. Matching the temperature. Same message, same words from them. but you respond with warmth at a sustainable level. That's good to hear. I think about it too sometimes. And you hold space for them without pouring your whole emotional world into the response. You stay present. You stay open. But you don't overshoot. Because when you match their temperature, you get to see what they're actually capable of offering right now, not what their words imply they're feeling. And that information is everything. Because now you know, and you can respond accordingly, instead of spending months interpreting silence as something it's not. And when you hold that boundary for yourself, something interesting happens. The other person either rises to meet you, or they don't. Either way, you know where you stand, and that's the only thing that can actually move you forward. Ask one question that reveals everything. Here's what I want you to understand about avoidant people. They're not bad. They're not broken. They're not incapable of love. But their nervous system, by default, operates in a mode where closeness equals pressure, and pressure equals the need to withdraw. And they don't do this consciously. It happens before they even know it's happening. Their brain reads warmth as demand before their mind can catch up. So, when an avoidant ex reaches out, they are doing something that actually costs them something. Reaching out requires them to sit with a level of emotional exposure that their nervous system is actively trying to avoid. And most of the time, what they reach out with is safe, pleasant, low risk. But here's the question that no one thinks to ask, and it's the question that will tell you everything you need to know. What made you reach out now? Not in an accusatory way, not in a "why did you wait so long" kind of way, but genuine, open curiosity. Because whatever their answer is, will tell you whether this reach is about them and their growth, or whether it's about them and their current life situation. Most avoidant exes reach out for one of two reasons. The first is genuine internal growth. They've done the work, they've understood their pattern, they feel ready to attempt something real without the old avoidance kicking in. That's rare, but it happens. And when it does, their answer will reflect it. It will be specific, self-aware, and honest about their own process. They won't just say, "I was thinking about you." They'll say something like, "I've been in therapy, and I've realized I kept running from good things because they felt like pressure. And I think about how that affected us, and I wanted you to know I understand that now." The second reason, the one that's much more common, is situational. They're lonely. They're between relationships. They saw something that reminded them of you. They had a hard week, and the comfort of what you had is feeling appealing right now. They're not reaching out because they've changed. They're reaching out because their current emotional state has made them temporarily less avoidant. And when that's the reason, their answer will reflect it. It'll be vague. It won't go very deep. It'll be something like, "I don't know, I just felt like reaching out," or "I was thinking about the past and wanted to see how you were." And here's the distinction that changes everything. The first kind of reaching out comes from a person who has done internal work. The second kind comes from a person who has hit a temporary emotional low. And you can hold compassion for both. But you should not respond to both in the same way. Ask the question, wait for the answer, and then decide what this actually is. Point 5. Don't try to fix the past. Answer the present. Here's what most people do when their avoidant ex reaches out. They immediately go back. They start revisiting what happened. They ask questions about why things ended, whether the other person understood what they were going through, whether things could have been different if one of them had done something differently. They try to reopen the case, rewrite the history, get the ending they feel they deserved. And I get it. You were probably left with a lot of unanswered questions. You were probably left mid-sentence, with things unsaid, with an ending that felt abrupt and unresolved. But here's what nobody explains about avoidant exes. They pulled away in the first place, partly because the relationship got too emotionally heavy. And now, months or years later, when you come back at them with all the weight of what happened, all the questions, all the, "I need you to understand how that felt," all the processing of what went wrong, their nervous system does the same thing it always did. It reads that as pressure, and it starts looking for the exit. Most people in this position think they're looking for closure, but what they're actually doing is trying to get their avoidant ex to go back into a level of emotional intimacy that caused them to withdraw in the first place. And the person on the other end, if they're avoidant, will either shut down, get defensive, or pull away again. And you will be right back where you started, but now with the added pain of having opened something and watched it close again. Here's what to do instead. Answer the present. Respond to who they are being right now, not to who they were when they left. What does this look like in real life? Version 1. Trying to fix the past. You respond, "I've thought a lot about why things ended, and I need you to know how much it hurt when you just disappeared like that. I need to understand what was happening on your side. Can we talk about what actually went wrong?" And you ask from a real, legitimate place. And their response either doesn't come or comes back as something minimal, and you feel the walls go back up again. Version 2. Answering the present. You respond to what they actually said in this moment, right now. You stay curious and open about who they are today, not forensic about who they were yesterday. You say something like, "I'm glad you reached out. I'm doing well. Life has moved in a good direction for me. How have you been?" And you keep the door open without walking through it immediately. You're not closing off the past. You're just not letting it drive the present conversation. And here's what happens when you do this. You signal that you're someone who can hold the present without being consumed by the past. And for an avoidant person, that is the single most stabilizing thing you can communicate. Because their pattern has always been, when someone needs too much emotional processing, they feel the walls come up. And when you don't need that, when you show up grounded and present, something in them starts to relax in a way they've rarely experienced in relationships. You can't fix what happened, but you can show them who you are now, and let that speak for itself. Point 6. Protect the version of yourself you've built since they left. Here's the thing about you. Whatever version of you showed up in this relationship, the one who tried hard, who made space, who got used to silence and called it peace, who learned to need less and less so they wouldn't feel the ache of not being reached for. That version of you exists in your body. It left marks. It built habits. And if you're not careful, when an avoidant ex reaches out, your nervous system will try to revert to that old version of you automatically. Not because that's who you are now, but because that's the version of you that learned how to survive being with them. This is the part that most people don't see coming. You think you've healed. You think you've moved on. You think you're a different person now, someone stronger and more grounded. And you might be. But the moment their name appears on your screen, something in your body has a physiological response that predates your conscious thought. Your cortisol spikes. Your attachment system activates. And before you've even decided what to feel, your nervous system has already started running the old program. And what does that old program sound like? It sounds like, be easy, be low maintenance, don't need too much, show them you're fine. Don't be the one who wants this more. Most people in your position will do this without realizing it. They'll soften their tone. They'll be accommodating. They'll de-escalate their own needs so the conversation stays pleasant. And they'll call that being mature, or not playing games, or just being honest. But here's the reframe. Protecting the version of yourself you've built since they left isn't playing games. It's not being cold. It's not wasting an opportunity. It is the single most important thing you can do. Because that version of you learned how to hold their own needs, how to stay in their own center, how to not disappear in someone else's emotional world. And if you abandon that version of yourself the moment they come back, you have just proved that the healing wasn't real. It was just waiting. What does this look like in real life? Version 1, reverting to old self. They reach out and you immediately start editing yourself. You make yourself more available, more upbeat, more easy to talk to. You check your phone more often. You find yourself softening your opinions, not bringing up the hard things, making yourself smaller in the conversation so they'll stay engaged. And you don't even notice you're doing it until someone points it out. Version 2, protecting your new self. They reach out and you stay who you actually are. You respond when you want to respond, not when you think you should. You say what you actually think, not what will keep the conversation going. You hold your boundaries the same way you hold them with anyone else in your life. Firmly, clearly, without apology. You stay in the life you've built. You don't make them the center of it again just because they showed up. And when you do that, when you show up as the person you've become instead of the person you were, something powerful happens. Either this person can meet that person and you find out if something real is possible, or they can't, and you find out with grace and clarity instead of confusion and heartbreak. Either way, you win. Because you're not the one who bent. You're not the one who made yourself small again. You showed up as the full version of yourself, and that is something no one can take from you. Point 7. Know the difference between a second chance and a do-over. Here's the mic drop truth on this whole situation. Most people who get back together with their avoidant ex after they reach out think they're getting a second chance. They're not. They're getting a do-over. And a do-over is only useful if the underlying pattern changes. Without that, you're just restarting the same movie and expecting a different ending. The research on this is actually pretty consistent. Most people who get back together with an ex end up back in the same dynamic within 6 months to 2 years. Not because they didn't try hard enough, not because they didn't love each other enough, but because the pattern that drove the distance didn't get addressed. It just got put on pause. And for an avoidant ex situation specifically, here is what that pattern looks like. One partner moves closer.
The other partner reads closeness as pressure. The other partner pulls away. The first partner interprets the pull as rejection and moves closer to try to restore connection. The second partner reads that as demand and pulls away further. And round it goes. If you get back together and that pattern isn't consciously interrupted by both people with real awareness and real tools, you will do the same thing again. The only difference is, this time, you'll know exactly how it ends. So here's what I want you to ask yourself at the end of this whole exchange. Is the version of me that's coming back into this the version that learned how to hold my own ground? Or is it the version that learned how to survive the distance?
Is this person reaching for the me I became, or the me I was when they left? And if the answer is the second one, if you're both showing up as the same people with the same patterns and the same fears and the same habits, then what you're walking back into isn't a second chance. It's a loop. And the real, honest, loving thing to do, for both of you, might be to close the door gently, with kindness, and keep building the life you've built since they left. Because here's what nobody tells you about that. The person you've become since they left, the one who learned to hold their own center, who stopped waiting to be chosen, who built a life that doesn't depend on anyone showing up, that person is the one who actually has something real to offer a relationship. And that person deserves someone who can meet them, not someone who only reaches out when the timing is convenient or the loneliness is strong. Here's what I want you to take out of this video. Not a checklist, not a formula, not a set of rules for what to text and what not to text. An invitation to stand in your own emotional ground, fully, clearly, without apology, even when someone who once made you feel unsteady shows up again with open arms. Because here's what nobody explained to you while you were in that relationship. You weren't too much. You weren't too needy. You weren't asking for something impossible. You were asking for someone who could meet you at the level you were already offering. And that was always a reasonable thing to want. And here's what you need to know now. Whether this person has changed, whether this conversation goes somewhere real, whether you get the answer you deserve or not, you are not the same person who walked into that relationship. You are someone who knows what distance feels like from the inside. You are someone who knows what it costs to keep reaching into silence.
And you are someone who has the right to decide whether you want to do that again. The moment you stop trying to figure out what they want and start knowing what you need, that's the moment everything changes. Not just with them, with everyone. This isn't about your ex, it's about you. And you've been ready for this for longer than you realized. Go get what you actually deserve.